David, obviously it's defeat on the final day. Just sum up that performance for me and what your thoughts on the game.
I think the game just epitomised the team throughout the season, unfortunately. And it's interesting football. Obviously there's people that maybe watch football but are not involved in football, so they can obviously learn all the time from some of the stuff that people are actually working in it. And unfortunately the players, they've just the same things have kept on coming back to haunt them a lot of the time, and I think today we epitomised that. We're obviously the club are quite open about they want to try and play with a certain way, and I think the chairman came out today, he said that about, he talked about PSG and things like that. They've obviously got £100 million players, which makes it a little bit easier. I think the group that's here, as I've said quite openly, if you're going to recruit players, you need to recruit players that can play in a certain way. Our team's a little bit of a mismatch, if I keep saying, and it's a little bit imbalanced. But to be fair, the boys have went out there and tried to play a little bit. The problem is that the first goal, we're actually in their box, we lose the ball, because it's quite synonymous of the group, unfortunately. They break forward, get a corner, ball comes in, they score. And it's like, and granted you're playing against a good team that have obviously got more good players in their team, that's why they've won the league. I think the second goal again, we're actually in possession, and Fox goes into the middle and we get the ball away, they go in, it's the softest penalty. The referee's position was abominable. I don't know how he could give the penalty, because his position was away off to the side, and people can turn around and say making excuses, but it's just facts. You know, if you actually have got any understanding of football, which some people watch football, I'm not sure they do, you'll see that it wasn't a penalty again. But it's just another thing that's happened to us. It's been constant. But the biggest issue is, again, just giving the ball away and not creating enough opportunities. We're getting into areas and we don't do anything with it. We try to really kind of get the boys a bit of a boost to try and liven them up more second half, because I openly said it, we really wanted to give the fans something to cheer about of some description, but the Achilles heel has been making mistakes and not scoring goals. Second half, we were in the game and we're about to make quite a few attack-minded changes, and then we make another terrible mistake, unfortunately, which has been synonymous across the board. If you strip back a lot of the goals, there's just things you can never legislate for. And I think today that the third goal, which is a real killer, because at 2-0 you're always in a game of football, I believe. We still made all the subs, we still tried to go for it, and in fairness to Bash and Danny, they came on and they gave us more pace up top to have a goal, because just before that Charlie could have scored. And then we've kind of huffed and puffed our way to the top. Nick's had a few shots, Will's hit the bar. We had a identical type penalty claim that they had, we didn't get it, they did, which is again just their season all over. So from the game point of view, it really just it just sums up the season that the boys have had, and I'll say it openly and I'll keep saying it, the boys don't go out there not to win, they don't go out there to play poorly. It's just the balance of the group sometimes has made it that way, and it's hard, you know, it's very hard for them, very hard for the fans, but hopefully now there's an opportunity, as I keep saying, for the club to reset it and obviously build something. It was interesting talking to Barnet, and I think that the supporters should listen to this, and people in general. There's a misconception about style of play and things like that, because obviously they don't coach. You can't just suddenly get a team to play football that haven't been obviously recruited to do that. If you look at Barnet, very good side, not spent loads of money, they've spent some money but not as much as what York has and so on and so forth, but their manager had a really good conversation. 3 years this took for them to do that, and again, from a personal point of view, you can only do so much in 2 or 3 months. It's impossible to have that style in a pitch. I just don't I don't think the supporters listen sometimes to some of the stuff that's been said. We've had to try and try and keep a group going, but they've been in this hole all of the season and we've tried that many different things, but the only thing you can do to change that is make sure that there's so many mistakes made at the start. Those mistakes have got to be tried to be corrected. Doing that during the season is tough, but to be fair, if you look at Barnet, it's a great example for Fylde, that talking to their gaffer, all their patterns are doing pre-season, they build it all the way through, but they're doing that for 3 years, and then what you've now got is you've got the product they've got in the pitch, and that's why they've been promoted. When you look at the types of players they've got, they're more athletic, they're stronger, and they're better footballers, hence why they've done so well, and I think you've got to give them a lot of credit. But in fairness to us, once again, it's just so frustrating when you look at the scoreline. The 3 goals come through our mistakes, or our possession and mistakes, whereas not many other teams make the same mistakes we do, unfortunately. And again, is that down to level of player, down to just the way it goes sometimes, possibly? But I think they're a really good example for MD to look at when you think about the job that they've done. But they've had 3 years to do that, and I think supporters have just got to show a little bit of patience. That ain't going to happen overnight. Suddenly you're going to have a team in the pitch that are going to be bopping the ball around and playing with a certain way. The boys are trying to do that. They just struggle to do it because the types of players we have, it doesn't really fit for that style. But obviously they're actively want to do it. It's just a little bit. It's nonsensical to try and expect that to happen now when a group of players weren't really signed to do that. But again, Barnet, I think deserve a lot of credit winning the league, and obviously winning today just puts the cherry on top for them. But they have a long-term plan, and hopefully the club can do that, and years down the line they can have the same success.
Just on that final point about the scoreline and sort of how it was, almost self-inflicted in many aspects. Has that been sort of the story that you've found since you've come in here, that quite often the scoreline hasn't really reflected the work that's going on behind the scenes, and it is more of a fact that there is just ultimately a lack of quality?
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, listen, and again, I hope that supporters do watch things. I think sometimes they're quite negative towards certain things, which I think some of them have been brilliant, and I've got to give them so much credit, the fans, but some of them just don't get it, and they need to listen to that. Last year I was at Burnley, and Vincent Kompany's the manager. They played in a certain way. They got relegated. Yeah, Vincent Kompany went to Bayern Munich, and they've just won the Bundesliga because you get better players, And there's that in a nutshell. If you've got a certain level of player, they're going to be able to give you the success. Now, in fairness to Vinny, because he's a top coach, and what he put in was unbelievable, and he was so. I was trying to do, but he had players that could play. But unfortunately, at the level he was at in the Premier League, unfortunately someone just lacked that bit of athleticism that you need alongside the football. So when they're playing against the better teams, they unfortunately got relegated. He also get the opportunity to go to Bayern Munich because he is a top coach, and you can see why, because what he's then gone and done, he's went and got the Bundesliga this year with the same style again. But the point is that you need the players to do that. You cannot, the players dictate how you play, and players will dictate the system. So if you want to play a system, whatever that system is, and play within that system what you want to do, with possession football, high press, you need players to fit that, and unfortunately at this juncture we don't have in the club the players to do that. And anybody that thinks they have, honestly I think they must be wearing a blindfold, because it's not factual, and I feel for them, because sometimes they've been asked to do things that they probably can't do at this moment in time. I think again with the mistakes we made earlier in the season, lack of fitness coach has hampered them, I must say. So I think there's so many factors to that. But the thing, it's a bittersweet thing, because I know that Stuart, who came in, I think he started only about maybe 2 weeks after myself. Obviously the chairman gave him the opportunity to try and rebuild the club, and they're doing a lot of work with improving the amount of staff, improving what type of staff, because I say to come to a football club and have no recruitment, it's madness at any level of football. Unless you've got someone in place already that's doing a dual role. So I think that's one of the biggest things they're trying to do, is to bring in head of recruitment, bring in recruitment analysts, etc. So I think from that point of view, they're going to be so well set within that league that looking at it, they should just come straight back up again. I mean, if you look at what they're trying to do, the intent is that they're going to put money into it at that level, and obviously they'll be one of the biggest budgets, if not the biggest, I would imagine. Alongside that, they're going to put that infrastructure of staff in, which I think that support, which has been lacking, to be quite honest with you, that I can see when I've come into the club. You need that support as a coach, or you need that support whatever department you're in, and I think that they're going to look to do that, and if they do that properly, then they've got a really good chance. And I think at least then, hopefully a year from now, the supporters should be hopefully celebrating getting promoted back up to the National League, because the plans that they have, we're obviously bringing in different players, spending money on players, whatever it may be, but the biggest thing for me is the infrastructure underneath that, and being at obviously a lot bigger clubs in Fylde, without disrespect to Fylde, the infrastructure in there is a lot better, hence why those teams have done so well. I think that Fylde have a reasonably good budget, but it's how you work that budget and make sure it's aligned to the right things. So if they do it, then they should definitely be in a really good position next year, without a shadow of a doubt.
And just finally, David, obviously I know it was announced earlier today that you'll be leaving us alongside Frankie McAvoy. Mm-hmm. We'll try and end this on a positive note in terms of your time here. I know it's been tough a few times, you're standing in front of me after games, but how much have you sort of enjoyed this spell? And like you say, the club, which does have a lot of potential, and should it do the right things, can go where it wants to be.
Listen, it has been very frustrating, and I knew that when I came in here how big a challenge it was. But as I said openly, if you take 4 different managers, but in total 9 different coaches, it tells you there's something wrong somewhere within it. However, the players, to be fair to the players, have really tried to take on board and tried to be better. I think they're better in some aspects. Unfortunately, as a collective, from the start to the end, the club's just not been good enough, whether that not be with the support or whether it not be with some of the players. It's just a fact. So, but in saying that, and I did say to the boys after it, and it is good because it's so disappointing. You've got players in there that played at a high level than this, so they find it hard, to be honest with you, that they're at a level that they probably would like to be higher, because that, as a lot of people would like to do. So they are very frustrated, a lot of them, and they are hurting with it. But the one thing I did openly say to them is, as human beings, they've been fine. I cannot fault them. They try to do stuff. Did they get it right? No. Unfortunately, again, today is another example where there's mistakes been made. We're giving the ball away, but that's just where we are, and that's just the way the club's been for a long time at the moment, and I think that's why they're trying to reset things and make a lot of changes. And in fairness to the chairman, I think he's took accountability for that and what's happened before. I can only talk about the last couple of months that myself and Frankie have took the team. It's been very, very challenging. Again, I can't compliment him enough, Neil and the rest of the staff. We've worked very hard. They've really put a lot of work in. You'll find in some football clubs, people will try and cut corners. There's no corners been cut. They've really tried. The players have really tried to take things on board. But fundamentally, the most important thing, and again, I'll go back to the Barnet manager, it's all about players. He said that to me before the game today. It's all about players. If you've got the right balance in your team and the right players the way you want to play, you've got a right chance. The problem is that there just hasn't been enough of the right players. And again, that's in no way to be dismissive or disrespectful to them, because as human beings they've been absolutely first class. They've been let down a little bit with maybe not getting the support, but then they've also got to take accountability for themselves and how they've played and what they do. One of the biggest things I said to them is, at higher level, the difference I see is the decision making. I've worked with good players. I mean, you look at someone like John McGinnett I had at St Mirren, who's now at Villa. His decision making is incredible. That's why he's playing in the Premier League. That's why he's the captain of Aston Villa. So if you look here, the decision making at the time has been really difficult, I think, for a lot of them, and hopefully they can learn from it. And I do think you can always learn from adversity, and you can always get better through adversity. And I'll just say a thank you to them, a thank you to the supporters who do support. There's been a lot of them who have tried to keep the players going, and I must compliment them. I said that to the boys after it. I look at last week away to Tamworth after winning and then losing, and still they applauded them. And then today as well, I know they've got a little awards thing tonight, which is hard for them to do. Getting relegated and doing Player of the Year awards is not an easy thing, but they'll go in there and really just use it as, I think, a thank you to the supporters, for the ones that do support and actually see it for what it is. You're always going to get a mixed bag in fans, and ones that have got a bit more education can understand of what's went on, and they'll probably sympathise a little bit with the boys that they're trying their best. It's just, there's been a multitude of things that have put us in this position. But hopefully, as I said before, hopefully they can take something from it, and next year be more positive. And again, from my point of view, for all, it's been really disappointing and frustrating. There's a lot of very good people in here, and I wish the club all the best. I'm not living here under a cloud or anything like that. It's just one of these things that I'm going to move on somewhere. The club are now going to look to bring another head coach in, and hopefully they make the right decision with that, and then they make the right decision with the players they recruit alongside the ones that are left. And if with that in mind, there's a real good opportunity. I mean, I'd like to think this time next year they'll be bouncing back up to National League.